I grew up in an environment where art was seen as something non-serious, like a hobby at most. I didn't have any mentor or like artistic help growing up at all, but I still somehow ended up kind of blowing up online at a relatively young age, which led me to have a job in the game industry for a decade, working on some of the biggest IPs like Overwatch, before moving on to teaching art to millions of people online like I do now. And it's not because I'm smart or talented, although I wish. But no, instead, it's because I learned to learn faster than everyone around me. I'm super lazy too, which meant hard work wasn't for me. So instead, I focused on smart work, like on clever ways that I could always use to get ahead with minimal effort. So in this week's episode of YTartschool, I'm not going to give you any hacks or any tricks. Instead, I'll share with you how the brain actually works and show you a learning system that will put you in the top 1% of artists, even if you've always felt like you were a slow learner. But first, you have to understand why most people fail. Like if art was a video game, why 99% of artists are playing it wrong. So your brain can only hold 4 chunks of information in your working memory at any time. That's what recent research shows. And I'll dig into the concept of chunks a bit later, but what's important to understand is that you can only hold a very small amount of information at a time. So trying to cram a bunch of information at once might seem like a good idea, like that's how you learn faster, right? More is always better. Not quite. Because what happens is that everything beyond your very limited capacity just gets deleted. It's like pouring a gallon of water into this tiny cup. It can only hold so much. The rest will just overflow and it'll get wasted. So like if you're learning anatomy, you'll only be able to remember a couple of muscles per day, no more. So maybe give yourself and your brain a little break. Now, the next thing you need to understand if you want to be in the top 1% of artists is that your brain is constantly lying to you. It takes a lot of energy to hold on to new information, and your brain, just like a lot of your body systems, like your muscles, would rather take it easy. Conserve energy. Like you hit something hard, like drawing hands, for example, and immediately you're trying to look for a tutorial on how to do that before you even really try. Or maybe you just hide them behind a character so you don't have to draw them. Or worst, you just give up. Except the struggle is how you actually learn. Neuroscience calls it the generation effect. The harder you work to generate the answer, the deeper it's wired into your brain. So looking at a tutorial shouldn't be something that you avoid completely, but you should look things up after you've tried to do it on your own, like looking at your own hands, like trying to draw it this way, looking at books, anatomy books, after significant struggle, because the potential gains here are not insignificant. This apparently can help you learn twice as fast, based on tests conducted at Carnegie Mellon University. So your brain doesn't hate the struggle, it actually thrives on it. So then the question is, how the heck do you feed it properly? Well, for that, we need to build a better learning system. We'll call it the artist skill tree. And by the way, this actually applies to any skill that you can learn, not just art. Our skill tree has 3 branches that will make you completely overpowered as an artist if you're able to unlock them all. Focus, practice, and recovery. Most artists will never complete the first branch, let alone the other 2. Almost nobody masters all 3. But if you can get there, and I'll show you exactly how, you'll be operating at a completely different level. All right, let's dive in. The first branch is focus. This is about kind of what you learn and how you organize it. Your brain can only handle 4 chunks of information at any given time, like I mentioned earlier. So top artists aren't really memorizing more than you. They're just organizing that information better. Like over the years, I've developed this ability to be able to name all the muscles in the body and all the bones in the body. But it's not like I have this list in my head where I can just go through all of them. Like I didn't learn each muscle individually. I chunked them into different categories that I learned over time. It's very similar to how people can remember like thousands of digits of pi, Like they don't remember each digit one at a time. Instead, they remember like strings of digits, chunks of digits. So that's kind of what we're developing here. And the 3 skills to unlock that will allow you to do exactly the same are strategic selection. Like what's 20% of the anatomy that will give you 80% of like the visual results. And here, of course, I'm talking about like the big muscle groups that define the silhouette. Like for arms, you only really need 4 things, like the deltoid, the bicep, tricep, and then the forearm mass. Not like 47 different muscles, because just those 4 will allow you to draw really convincing arms. And you can approach any skill this way, just like playing the guitar. Like if you learn just a couple of chords, you should be able to play a lot of different melodies. So pick the essentials first, like the 20% that matters the most. Skill number 2 is connection building. And here's something from cognitive science. Apparently, you really can't learn something new unless you connect it to something that you already know. A paper in Science magazine found that you can't absorb new information until you link it to existing knowledge. And that's not optional. That's just how memory works. So every time you learn something new, like think, have I seen something similar before? What does this connect to? When you're learning perspective, well, if you already know how to draw boxes, it's just drawing a different kind of box using some vanishing point now. If you're learning gesture drawing, well, as a kid you were drawing stick figures. Well, gesture drawing is just a glorified stick figure really, but with better proportions and like more curved lines. So always build on what you already have. And the third skill is compression. So you take complex information and you compress it into like simpler visual models. That's chunking, what I was talking about. It's like my recent class on body construction, where you can take, something complex that have many different parts and simplify it. Like how the entire human torso can be simplified down to just 2 shapes. A rib cage, egg on top, and like a box for the hips. So when you think about it this way, your whole torso occupies only like 2 mental slots instead of like 50 if you were to learn everything that goes into it. When you're learning something new, this is much more achievable. The focus isn't about learning less, it's all about organizing what you learn so that your brain can handle it. Handle more. 99% of us will get overloaded, but the 1% of artists will use these focus skills to get ahead. So there you go. Branch 1, unlocked. The second branch I call practice, and it's all about how you actually train. Too many artists out there are just reading about art, watching tutorials about art, maybe my tutorials, instead of making art. And having knowledge is unfortunately not the same as having a skill. Art, like most skills, isn't a spectator sport. You gotta practice, and here's how to do it to be in the top 1%. There's 3 skills again that we should aim to unlock. The 90-minute block. Your brain operates on what researchers call ultracadian cycles, which is about 90 minutes to 2 hours of peak focus before needing to rest. So you get 90 minutes of high performance, and after that, your focus completely depletes and you're working at maybe 10% efficiency. And by like high performance, what I mean here is like learning new stuff, right? Like learning anatomy, or like actively designing a new character, like from imagination, trying to come up with cool aesthetic elements, like something that typically makes your brain hurt a little bit. Like a lot of people will just try to power through it, like 6 hours straight, like thinking that they're just being more productive, leveling up faster. But really after 90 minutes, you're basically running on fumes. Like 2 90-minute sessions per week will always be better than like 10 hours of just unfocused work. It's about quality, not quantity. Now the second skill is rapid testing. This skill is another one most will just completely skip on, just not knowing how much of an impact it has. I've been guilty of that myself for years, just sitting through tutorials, just thinking that I'm getting smarter because I'm learning all this new stuff, but only to practice what I just learned maybe like days later, maybe like weeks later. Doing that is almost completely useless. For the practice to be as valuable as possible, you gotta test immediately. Practice what you learn right away. It goes learn, test, learn, test. So like if you watch a cool tutorial, don't be satisfied yet, because you'll only really retain that information if you put it in practice immediately. And now skill number 3 is teach to learn. Now this is the biggest one. Once you learn something, explain it to someone, or teach it to your pet, or worst case, the wall. The idea is that if you can't explain something clearly, then you didn't actually learn it. You might have memorized it temporarily, but that's just memory without understanding. It's the kind of information that gets deleted from the brain the fastest. Obviously, I am a fan of this specific skill, and considering like how little I actually practice and how fast I'm still making progress, there has to be something to it. And there is. It's a well-known phenomenon that this actually increases memory, retention, and understanding. Maybe that sounds weird, but think of it this way. Teaching something forces you to organize your thoughts in a way that you can communicate like easily, right? It connects everything. If you can teach it, you own it. But obviously, before you can teach it, you gotta learn it. I've been talking a lot about how to learn, but like with any skill, and certainly art, what you learn and the structure to your education is still by far the most important part. And I would like to think that my art program is the best example of this. It's the sponsor of this video, as usual. And it's on sale at a massive discount for just a couple more days until the end of the month only, at midnight. With the week-by-week schedule that comes with it, you basically get spoon-fed exactly what to learn, when to learn it, and how to practice it. Plus, all the fundamentals you need to be able to draw anything your mind can imagine. Nearly 31,000 students have joined so far and taking their art to the next level. Just check it out with the link in the video description. I think you'll be glad you did. And you could very well figure all of this on your own with enough time, trial and error. But if you want the full guided version instead, art school might just be what allows you to unlock all your potential as fast as possible. But there you go, that was branch 2 unlocked. We now know how and what to focus on, how to practice. Now let's see how we can cement all of that information into our long-term memory to remember it forever. These skills we're about to see, almost everyone ignores them. I think the most important insight is this: learning is a two-stage process. Phase 1 is about active practice. You're drawing, studying, working. You're telling your brain basically, hey, remember this, that's important. And then in phase 2, it's rest. And this is when your brain actually processes all that new information. It locks it in. And like I said, most people only ever do phase 1. Like they'll grind constantly, cram their brain full of new information and wonder, why am I not making much progress even though I'm working so hard? It's because they're skipping the phase where learning actually happens. You should think of the learning cycle as this, like work, rest, work, rest, and repeat. Because if you miss either, no learning happens. So first skill is the 10-second rest. So if you recall that 90-minute of intense work, right? Well, throughout all of it, you would want to take frequent micro breaks of 10 to 20 seconds. Research shows that after focused learning, if you pause for just 10 seconds, your brain kind of replays everything you just learned, but like at 10 to 20 times the speed. It's like getting like 20 free mental reps in just a couple seconds. So let's say you're drawing or you're painting using your reference photo. Each time you complete a difficult part, or put down a couple of important brush strokes, step back, count to 10. Don't reach for your phone or try to entertain yourself, or this won't work. Just let your brain process for a couple seconds. Then keep going. Do this often enough and you'll basically be multiplying your learning speed. Now, skill number 2 is the 20-minute rest. So after your 90 minutes of focused work, you must rest for 20 minutes. Like actually rest. Again, no phone, no YouTube, nothing. Just lay down or maybe go take a walk, make a cup of tea or coffee and stare out of the window. This is the ultra-dian cycle. 90 minutes on, 20 minutes off. And what happens during that 20 minutes is your brain starts to consolidate everything it's learned and it stores it into long-term memory if you give it time. Skip this though and you just lost about 50% of what you just learned. And I know 20 minutes of doing nothing might sound unproductive, but it's actually the most productive 20 minutes of your entire session. And then the third skill is sleep. Your brain replays everything it's learned during sleep. Deep sleep specifically. Research suggests that while you're sleeping, your brain actually runs through everything it's learned but in reverse multiple times. So you should really fix your sleep schedule. Otherwise, you're basically always operating at like half capacity. And unfortunately, it's not something you can fix with coffee. Your brain literally needs to sleep to consolidate learning. We're like batteries if you think about it. We need our recovery period after the charge's been depleted, otherwise it just don't work. And that's the most important lesson. Without our rest, the other branches are just completely irrelevant. No rest, no learning. So let me put all of this together. These skills that obviously apply to art, but also to any skill in life really, had a huge impact on me. I've seen a few people in my life, not many, but a few people that they were born with talent. They had something extra. That wasn't me. Like I've always been kind of frustrated that I wasn't born with anything special like that. Except my good looks, I guess. But it's really discovering the system that helped me break through. I wasn't lucky as you are now because I had to figure all of this on my own. A lot of time, a lot of research, a lot of failure. But over the years, I pieced it all together. And I think it's safe to say that it changed my life. Like I wouldn't be where I am today without it. So I'll end with this. Your only competition really is yesterday's version of yourself. Stop comparing yourself to others like I used to. There's always someone ahead, and there's always someone ahead of them. The same way there's always somebody behind you, and somebody behind that person. The loop just never ends. Also, you can't practice and criticize yourself at the same time. So while you're working, just work, and then review later. And then finally, respect the rhythm. Work, rest, work, rest. Progress isn't constant. Like some weeks you'll just jump forward a bunch, others you'll feel like you're plateauing. That's normal, just give it time. With enough time and this skill tree, you can master anything. And this is how you learn faster than everyone else.